My doctor just put me on new ADHD meds, and I can't focus on a single thing to save my life. Let's see how this goes. Hey besties, and welcome back to Sustainability Sunday. I know that I say in every Sustainability Sunday that Sustainability Sunday isn't about being fully sustainable, fully zero waste. It's about the little changes that you can make. And I know that I've talked in previous videos about how not everyone can make those changes. So that begs a question. Is sustainability a privilege? The answer is yes. Being able to make sustainable swaps is very much a privilege. I feel like the best way to explain how sustainability is a privilege is to quote Terry Pratchett. If y'all don't know, Terry Pratchett is an author, an amazing author. In one of Terry Pratchett's novels, one of his characters puts the boots theory into words. I don't want to paraphrase him, so I'm going to read it directly from my phone. The reason that the rich were so rich, Vimes reasoned, was because they managed to spend less money. Take boots, for example. A really good pair of leather boots cost $50, but an affordable pair of boots, which were sort of okay for a season or two, and then leaked like hell when the cardboard gave out, cost about $10. But the thing was that good boots lasted for years and years. A man who could afford $50 had a pair of boots that'd still be keeping his feet dry in 10 years' time, while a poor man who could only afford cheap boots would have spent $100 on boots in the same time and would still have wet feet. And that's what sustainability is, and that's why it's a privilege. It's certainly more sustainable to buy one pair of boots for $50 and keep them for years. It's not sustainable to go through multiple pairs of boots in that same time. However, the world isn't set up to be fair. The world isn't set up to be sustainable. A lot of people can't afford the more expensive option, which is the more sustainable option. Food deserts are in plenty of parts of the country where you can't go to a big box store. You can't go to your local farmer's market because they don't have those options. You have to go to whatever your corner stores and get whatever they have. You can't get the more sustainable option. Most sustainable swaps involve spending money, a lot more money than you would normally spend. It's normally a one-time upfront cost, but that's a lot more money than most people have in their budget. It's so much easier to go to the dollar store and pick up Q-tips from the dollar store than to spend however much for the reusable Q-tip, as an example. I just did a video about more sustainable toilet paper. It's so much easier to go to the dollar store and grab toilet paper there than it is to spend the money for more sustainable toilet paper. It is a privilege to be able to make these sustainable swaps. It's so much easier to keep going with what you're used to, especially when those things are mass produced and you can buy them at the dollar store. Buying Ziploc bags instead of buying the reusable bags. Buying the things that you're used to that you can get for $1 versus an upfront cost that lasts you a lot longer. It's privilege. It is sheer privilege, and there's no way to deny that. Even as simple as if you're driving a hybrid car instead of driving a fully gas car, that's a privilege. A lot of people can't afford cars. A lot of people get whatever beater they can find on Facebook Marketplace. Every sustainable choice that you make is a privilege. And that's something that should never be forgotten. Partially because I feel like when people start a sustainability journey, they look down on people that are not making sustainable choices. But you need to remember how difficult that is. But partly because if you want to make a sustainable change, but you can't afford one of these easy swaps, do not feel bad. People can only do what they can do. It is truly a privilege, and you should never forget how privileged you are if you are able to do any of these swaps. Today alone, I went to the mall with my fiance, and we saw that our Forever 21 is closing, and it gave me all the feels because that's where I lived when I was a teenager. But then I brought up, oh, it feels like Shein kind of put them out of business. He had never heard of Shein, so I had to explain Shein to him. And that brought up sustainability again. That's a whole nother story that I could start. I'd do a whole nother video on that, about economically Shein versus thrifting versus Forever 21, fast fashion. I could do a whole nother video on that. It's certainly more sustainable and more affordable to buy from the thrift shops, but unfortunately resellers have ruined a lot of thrift shops for us. Things like going to big box stores. We have a membership to Costco, and we have family members with memberships to other big box stores in the area. That's a privilege. Paying that yearly fee, being able to get in the car, drive to the store, pick up what we need, drive back home, that's all privilege. Listen, I lived both ends of the spectrum. I grew up in a upper middle class family, I would say. I would say probably upper middle class. And then we had a situation happen where we ended up poor. There's no other real way to phrase it. Every month it was the question of, is the house getting foreclosed? I've lived on both sides of that spectrum. I understand not being privileged enough to make these changes. That's why I do this series, because some of the easy swaps aren't very expensive. Some of them are. Some of them are an upfront cost. Some of them play into the boots theory. Some are not achievable. Some are simple. If I have food in a good jar, I 100% will rinse out the jar and keep it. I had a protein powder that came in a tub, protein powder that came in a bag. When the tub was used up, put the bagged one into the tub. Makes less mess, more convenient, and it's reusing the tub instead of just throwing it out. That's an easy, sustainable swap with things I already had. But some things aren't that easy. It's never right to look down on people for any reason. But if you're looking down on someone because they can't afford to be sustainable, what are you doing with your life? I'm not gonna lie, Buy Nothing groups on Facebook are a huge example of this. I am in my local Buy Nothing group, and a lot of the times when something's posted, there are multiple people that say, oh, I'm interested, but I don't drive. Can you drop it off? And they're like, no, I need someone to come pick it up. I understand you're giving something away. That's your decision. That's fully on you. I would say the same thing. However, that's your privilege to make that choice. And if you're somebody that can drive and says, oh, well, that person can't come pick it up, but I want it, so I'm going to come pick it up for me, that's very much privilege. Even things like sewing your own clothes, knitting your own blankets, that's more of a hobby than a sustainable swap. Because when you think about it, if you're knitting your own blanket, my sister crocheted me a beautiful blanket that I am absolutely obsessed with. But think about the money that you spend on knitting needles or crochet hooks if it's crochet, yarn, when you're first learning patterns. That's a lot of money. And when you make a blanket, how many blankets can you really have in your home? Again, my sister gifted it to me. Wonderful. We had a regular at work also gift us a blanket. But that's already 2 blankets that I have now, where one can go on the couch, one's in my office. How many blankets can one person have? If you're spending all the money on supplies to make your own, wouldn't it be easier and a lot more sustainable to go to the thrift shop and get one of those blankets that already exist? If it's your hobby and you love doing it for that reason, great. But that doesn't mean that it's a more sustainable option than buying a blanket. Does that make sense? Today alone, I saw, while we were at the store, a bunch of different products to make your own candles, make your own wax melts. As someone who's a huge fan of wax melts, I looked at my fiance and I said, oh, would this be a good idea? That way we don't need to go out and buy them. You can bulk buy the wax, melt it down, add your own scents. But for the price point, it doesn't make sense. It's not necessarily more sustainable because I'm buying a bulk bag of wax. Yeah, okay, great, we have a lot of wax, but the cost for the wax, the cost for the scents, if you want it to be a pretty color, the cost for the dyes, it all adds up. And if you're starting a new hobby like that, it's gonna take some time before you get it right. For me personally, as someone that gets migraines, I love my wax melts, but I could see trying to make it, not putting enough fragrance oil in, and then not being able to smell it, or ending up accidentally putting in too much and it triggering a migraine in me. It's not always worth it because it's not always sustainable, even if you think up front that it is. At the end of the day, everything boils down to privilege. It's a privilege that you can make sustainable swaps. It's a privilege that you can afford to make sustainable swaps. It's a privilege that you have a roof over your head, because plenty of people out there don't. And the one thing that I'm most tired of hearing is, this person claims to be sustainable, but XYZ. It's the but for me. There is no reason to ever bash someone for not being sustainable enough. If you think someone's being wasteful, Absolutely, you can say, I think this is wasteful, but keep in mind, their situation is not your situation. This is not personal about me. People have not been coming for me saying that I'm wasteful, saying I'm not sustainable enough. This isn't about me. This is about people in general. There are plenty of sustainable swaps that I refuse to do, which might be a video that's coming up, hint, hint. But at the end of the day, sustainability is a privilege that I'm very glad to have. I feel like this was a lot of rambling just to say don't judge someone for not being sustainable enough and be thankful that you are able to be sustainable. This was a lot of rambling for that, but hi, have you met me? I ramble a lot. Sorry that there were no tips in this video. I just sort of had to go on my little tangent. The boots theory I think about every day, if I'm being honest. Anytime that I'm at a store, anytime that I look at Facebook Marketplace, which is a lot more than my fiance wants me to, I think about the boots theory and about how finding something secondhand that costs a lot more upfront genuinely saves me so much money, even spending that money in the first place. I have an old Louis Vuitton bag. I didn't pay full price for it. It was a gift to me because part of it broke, so it was gifted to me. But that bag, still truckin'. I think I was like 6 or 7 years old when it was gifted to me by my childhood nanny. That bag, still a workhorse, still a tank. Never forget how privileged you actually are. And I don't mean that in an attacking way. I mean that in a be grateful every day that you are that privileged. All right, y'all, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell because otherwise YouTube will never tell you when I post. YouTube's a little bit broken. I feel like we all know that by now. I put up new videos every Sunday and Wednesday, and then I alternate Mondays and Fridays. Leave a comment down below with what your favorite sustainable investment is that plays into the boots theory. I can tell you I already know my best friend's is Doc Martens. She used to get the knockoffs from Forever 21. She bought the name brand. There was no turning back for her. I'm not gonna lie, I followed suit with that because they do not fall apart as quick as Forever 21 shoes would. Casey, this is in fact a call out. I know Doc Martens is yours. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.
I don't know, but I've been told the world outside is oh so cold. So cold.